All right, hi everyone, and welcome to this week's product training with Blue Triangle. Today we're going to talk about monitoring third-party content. There's a variety of ways to do this with Blue Triangle. You can configure SLA thresholds and get notified when a tag isn't performing. You can also set up what we call missing service alerts and get notified when a tag or service falls off the site or when it isn't showing up as often as it should be. So in this session, we're going to walk through how to do these things, and along the way, we'll discuss some quick troubleshooting steps for when tag issues arise. All right, so my name is Mark, and I'm the support manager here at Blue Triangle, and I do these trainings each week about web performance, analytics, and ultimately how to solve problems using Blue Triangle. So let's go ahead and get started. As far as the agenda today, like I mentioned before, we're going to talk about really three different things, all related to tag governance. So the first thing we're going to do is run through the SLA status and SLA thresholds pages in Blue Triangle, and we're going to walk through how to set one of these up ultimately to get notified when a tag or service isn't performing. So this could be for the actual loading duration or performance, or it could be maybe the file size is exceeding an agreed upon SLA. Now these SLAs, they don't have to be contractual. You can set these up as internal SLAs or just SLAs that are more like goals, and you can create them with very fine lines to get, and you'll be able to get notified when the service or tag is breaking that SLA. So and then the next thing we're going to talk about are the missing services. Basically, you can get notified from Blue Triangle when a specific service is not loading on your site as often as it should be. So we'll walk through how to do that, and finally we'll touch on kind of troubleshooting issues, like if you get the alert, what do you do next? How do you kind of really diagnose the problem? Particularly, this session doesn't need to be entirely about third-party content. This can include first-party content as well. So you could set up an SLA for your own website's content, and so we can talk in addition to monitoring third-party content. We can talk about troubleshooting issues with some tags that aren't performing well, that are your own. And the last thing is we'll run through some Q&A. If there's any questions that you guys had along the way that I can help answer for you, I'll be happy to do that, and we'll save a few minutes for that at the end of the session. All right, so let's go ahead and jump into Blue Triangle. So right now we're on the SLA status page. You can get there under the tag governance section, SLA status. And this shows all of the SLA thresholds that you currently have configured. When you first get to the page, it's going to tell you probably that you need to go over to the SLA thresholds page to set one of these up. So let's walk through how to set up an SLA threshold and ultimately set up the alert and see it here in the SLA status. So we're going to pop open the SLA thresholds up here. And if we jump over there, we're able to see our list of configured SLA thresholds. We just have one right now for Blue Triangle, and the condition is the btt.js JavaScript file, its average duration must be less than 100 milliseconds. And currently that's failing. Just wanted to show you an example of one of these issues failing. You can actually open up the conditions and the details. And the reason it's failing is because the measured value is 133 milliseconds, which is not less than 100 milliseconds, which is the defined SLA value. So before we get into more detail on that, let's go ahead and create one of these SLA thresholds for another service. So I'm going to click Create up there in the top left, and the first thing we're going to do is choose which service we want to set one of these SLA thresholds up for. So I'm going to choose Google Tag Manager just as an example, just because I know it's on the Blue Triangle website. So you can give it a name or just leave it blank. It'll just be called the Google Tag Manager SLA threshold. The filter groups are unique to the SLA threshold section. Basically, you can set up your filter options in a particular way and then save them as a group, and then you can apply those filter options to this SLA. So for this example, we're not going to create a new group. We'll just modify the default SLA filter group, and you can do that using these buttons over here. So we're going to click Edit, and I've already gone in and set this up, and what I did was change the data type. So instead of real user, we're just going to be looking at our synthetic data. You could also go into here and say, maybe you're only interested in the synthetic data from a particular set of agent locations, or maybe a specific synthetic script that you want to do this for. But you could save those filter options and then apply those to multiple SLA thresholds. All right, so we can now set the effective date and expiration. We'll just leave that to not expire. And I actually like the default conditions here. So, but to show you a little more about what you can do, you can go in and set a wildcard. So maybe all of the .js files from Google should abide by this condition, which right now is the average duration must be less than 500 milliseconds. But we're just going to say the file Google Tag Manager gtm.js must be less than 500 milliseconds. So a few other things you can do here. You can do the min or max. Instead of duration, you can do start time. Maybe you're interested in making sure that your files are loading at the correct time. Or you can do the file size. We're just going to stick with duration, and we're going to say it must be less than 500 milliseconds. So this is just one condition. You can actually add multiple conditions here if you'd like. So let's say we wanted to say that the duration should be less than 500 milliseconds. Another thing we could do is say that the average file size must be less than 100 kilobytes, for example. So we now have two SLA conditions here. For Google Tag Manager. I'm going to go ahead and click Save New SLA Threshold. So here we see it up in this table, and we can see our conditions. I'm going to go back over to the SLA status page, and we should see that pop up now. And here underneath our blue triangle threshold, we can now see our Google Tag Manager SLA threshold. And we can see the SLA here, which is the file size must be less than 100 kilobytes. And currently the measured value is 35 kilobytes. While we're here, a quick thing about this purple trend icon. You can actually pull this up and see the performance over time. So it looks like we're in the 120 roughly millisecond range on average, which is pretty decent. And again, this is our synthetic data. All right, so we have this set up now. What we want to do next is create an alert, and you can do that by clicking the Create Alert button here. When you do that, it's going to jump you right over to the alerts page, and we can just start and give it a name. Just send this to me, and we'll run through this alert wizard here. This is our synthetic data, and the alert type here, you're going to want to change this to SLA violations. And we're going to want to choose our Google Tag Manager SLA threshold. If you leave these things blank, it just chooses all of your thresholds or your filter groups or your conditions. So we could alert on just one of these conditions, but we'd like to see them all. And then the warning threshold, this just means if you're getting within 15% of the critical threshold, we can send you a warning message as well. And the last thing is the schedule. We're going to leave all these defaults, all days of the week, no maintenance windows. We'll set our evaluation window to 60 minutes. This is the look back period for the alert. Minimum sample size is just the number of times we've observed the data in question. Filter options here, we'll just leave those blank, of course, and finish. So we now have our Google Tag Manager SLA threshold alert set up, and that's what I wanted to show you guys as far as the SLAs. So now we have an SLA set for our Google Tag Manager, and if it begins to perform poorly, we'll be notified via email. So that is a great thing to do. All right, and now if we refresh the page on the SLA status, we should now see that we have one enabled alert set up for our Google Tag Manager SLA threshold. All right, so that's how you set up an SLA threshold and an alert to get notified of when the service isn't obeying that threshold. The next thing we're going to do is talk about missing services. So the missing services page allows you to set up tracking and notifications for services when they aren't loading on the page or loading on your site as often as they should be. Right now we have a couple of these set up, and the way to set more of these things up, we'll go into Google Tag Manager again just to pick on them, and we can click the plus icon down here, which is going to add a configuration, a missing services configuration. So what we're saying here is the thresholds for the percentage of time that we've observed this service on the site must be 95% in RUM and 100% in synthetic. You set the notification frequency and set recipients. You click Save. And now you're going to see it in the table above, listed with the configured missing services. Now, with the missing services, they work a little different than the SLAs. With the missing services, you have to configure one of these in order to begin the tracking and notifications. So what you'll be able to see is a trend. Once this is running for a couple of days, you'll be able to see a trend of the percentage of time this service was observed on the site for both RUM and synthetic data. But so far we haven't gotten enough measurements. There's not enough measurements yet available for this service. One more thing about the SLAs and the missing services, there are logs for these. The missing services log you can see here, this shows basically all the state changes of your configured missing services, as well as what the email messages are. So, for example, Font Awesome was observed 87.931% of the time. This was a while back, but you can view the email and see, hey, Font Awesome wasn't loading 100% of the time like it should have been. So that's how you get to the missing services log. The SLA violations are going to be in the alerts log. So you'll be able to go down to the logs here and open up the alerts log. And this also shows a change log, but you'll also be able to see other alerts and especially your SLA violations. So you would just need to go in and search by SLA violations, and that'll filter down to the violations. All right, so the last thing I wanted to talk about was just some quick troubleshooting steps for when third-party content isn't behaving. There's a couple of great places to look. One of them is the Tag and Content Governance Overview. So there's a lot of great information kind of packed into one screen here. So I'm going to open that up. And up in the top left, we're going to be able to see the first and third party activity. So you're able to see the slowest domains on your site all just bubbled up into this widget, services, domains, and file level view of that. Now, when you click on one of these, you're actually able to drill into the domain details for this particular domain. So, for example, the bluetriangle.com domain, let's say it was performing slowly. You can pull up all of the details for this domain on this page, and you can get there just manually under the Tag and Content Governance under Domain Details. The service details is very similar in that it's for data for the service. Here on the domain details, it's a little more detailed with, you're able to see all of the resources that make up this particular domain. You can also click the one of these resources and you'll be able to trend it in this graph above. Another few things you're able to see, looks like we just had one data point here for that particular resource. But you're also able to see the pages that this content is present on and the pages it's not on. Now, one of the things you can always do, and probably the best place to look when it comes to drilling into performance issues related to third-party content, is the aggregate waterfall page. So this is a waterfall over time. So it's thousands of waterfalls overlaid on top of each other and averaged, and hence the name aggregate waterfall. So it's a really amazing tool to give you a view of how the content on your site is loading. So just to point out a few things you can do here, there's the domain level view and the resource or object level view. You can also view this in both of these in a table. And you can click this button here to trend this particular resource. You can also go up here and change, for example, you can change the time period to the last 7 days. And you can apply filters there. Now what you can do is run a comparison on that previous 7 days. Let's say we would like to compare that to the 7 days prior and see what's changed in that time frame. So we're going to switch this from the, we're going to compare that to the 4th through the 11th. Click apply. What you're going to see is an additional waterfall load. And you're going to see details on what's changed between the previous 7 days and the 7 days before that. So I think you'd probably want to have these switched. But in any case, you're able to see some high-level metrics, page-level metrics. And then if you scroll down, you're able to see the percent change of these domains from time period A to time period B. And just like you can do on other areas of the portal, you can click on one of these domains to drill into the domain details and see the trend for this data, see what pages it's on and what pages it's not on, and see how many resources we're seeing over time. So maybe you're drilling into an issue, and what you learn is your service is not loading on all the pages it should be loading on. Or maybe you get your missing service alert, and that's the conclusion that you come to. All right, well, I hope that was helpful for everyone. That's all I had for today's training. So I'm going to open back up the slides here, and I'm going to check the chat and the questions and see if there's anything I can help answer for you guys. All right, so I see one question here, and I'll go ahead and get started with that. And meanwhile, if you guys have anything else, feel free to drop it into the chat or the questions tab, and I'm happy to answer anything for you. All right, so the first one is, how would I set up an SLA for an entire service? Not just one of the files, but all of them. Yeah, that's a great question. So let me open back up the SLA thresholds page, and I can kind of show you how to do that. So let's go into the SLA thresholds. Let me close down some of these. All right. So we're going to create a new SLA threshold, and we want to do this for an entire service. So let's say Adobe is what we want to use it for. Adobe Analytics. All right, so it's really pretty straightforward. What you're going to do after you configure the filter group and the other details, you're going to set your condition. Instead of file, you're going to choose wildcard, and you're just going to drop in here a star. And what that's going to mean is all of the files, all of the content from this service, the average duration of all of that must be less than 500 milliseconds. So that would be how to do that for the entire service. What you're going to find though, if you do many of these, due to the really vast amount of data that we have to query in order to come up with the results, the more of these that you have a wildcard with just a star, you may notice some slight slowness in the SLA status page. But if you set up your alerts, you'll still be able to get notified right away. It just may take a little bit longer on the SLA status page for those to load in as well. Cool. So it looks like that is all we have for you guys today. So thank you so much for your time. And if you do have any more questions, we're happy to speak with you offline. So feel free to reach out to us anytime. You can reach us at any of the emails listed here. Support, of course, is support at Blue Triangle or bluetriangletech.com. And you can also submit a request or a question in our help center at help.bluetriangle.com. For more information about our product trainings, like how to watch previous sessions or upcoming ones, registering for upcoming ones, be sure to check out our help center. Again, that's help.bluetriangle.com. And when you're there, just click the big button for product training. All right, guys, that's all we have for you today. Thanks again for your time, and we look forward to seeing you next time. Have a great day.